Hello, friends. Welcome to Part 8, the conclusion of my 2021 year in review. And today is all about the months of November and December. Now, November started out just like every other month with beautiful skies, but it's a month of cleanup. We've had a hard freeze at the project garden, but we still haven't had a hard freeze at my home garden until probably the middle of November. So the leaves are still on the trees. They haven't all fallen off yet. But it's a time now where there's a little bit of produce coming on, but most of it is all about just cleanup. And so I started to burn some of the zucchini and other squash plants. Easier just to burn them because over that I have to cut them up and kind of a pain. Also did a lot of blowing of leaves in the front yard and in the backyard. Lots of leaves. This is next year's compost, so we've got to get her cleaned up. Got to keep my fire pit area clean, because I'm joining fires through the month of November. Still produce to eat. We had a nice head of cauliflower. Beautiful. Late in the season, cauliflower has no bug issues, so it was tasty. And we still had a little bit of broccoli. Not a lot, but we ate some in salads. And my tomatoes. Still got quite a few tomatoes. Not nearly what we had at the project garden, but it was a nice little harvest. Kept us in fresh tomatoes for a while. As well as we still had some of the cherry tomatoes. We still had green beans until the first frost in the middle of November. The first look of the garlic at the beginning of November. As you can see, it's poking up through the hay mulch. Looking good. Not all of it's come up, but a lot of it has. Now here's a look about the third week of November. As you can see, the plants are much taller. And again, garlic just overwinters, so when it does get cold, it just gets covered in snow, and just this bed will freeze, and it'll just sit there. But I have to water it in good. I want to make sure it's well hydrated. So this is the last watering of the year other than Mother Nature taking care of it. Had a few leftover pumpkins from Halloween, so I chopped them up. And they're the best treat for the chickens this time of the year, as we're losing other types of food sources to keep their eggs nice and yellow. My favorite time of the year is like Christmas. It is leaf bag season. I used to collect lots of leaves, hundreds of bags of leaves, but now I've scaled it back. But I just bring enough home to give my chickens some for the run, and then I usually have enough leaves in my yard to keep my compost going good. But the chickens love to dig through this, and it helps with the manure, and it just gives them something to do. I also put all my wood ash from my fire pit into the chicken yard, and then they mix it all up as they scratch through. And that the benefits of biochar or wood ash I won't get into right now. And I had some to insulate the worms in the compost bin. I also did a video on my Thanksgiving Day turkey in my outdoor grill. And oilless grill was the best way to cook a turkey. It takes about 3 hours approximately to get to about 160, 65 degrees. But it's just propane. You see the buttons popped up, and it's a beautiful golden crisp turkey. Perfect every time. Always the right moisture content, never dry. And it's just tasty. Transitioning to the project garden, here I'm doing a fast-paced dig of the final potato harvest, and it looks like I got about a full bucket and a little bit more on this one. A lot of potatoes this year, and that should wrap up the potato harvest. Here they are in the back of the truck to get a better visual as to how many I got in today's harvest. All the way through November, I continued to pick carrots until I got them all out. I did leave a few in the ground for the homeowner, but I took everything that I wanted to take home out of the garden this month. Here's a view. They're a little bit smaller, not as big as some of the other ones, but they were still lots of carrots. And we cut them up and blanched them. And then we decided it's time to put some in the freezer, so we bagged them up and threw them in the freezer. We did eat a lot of fresh carrots, though. Also in November, I ripped out all the tomatoes. Because of the freeze, they were gone. There's a few crops, so you see the leeks behind me, but the frost took out a lot of what was here. And here's the corn. All we have is a bunch of dead stalks And so I just ripped those out. I prepared the ground really well this year, nice and loose, so I was able just to pull these out of the ground without having to use a shovel, most of them anyway. And I did find a few ears that I missed that all the chickens enjoyed. Now here's the leeks. I'd already picked a couple earlier, but these aren't huge, but they were very good and very tasty. We made a squash and leek soup. And here's what else is left in the garden. It's just the brassica plants that I'm leaving in the ground so I can feed them to the chickens. And lots of Swiss chard. And here's a look at the back of the truck in the middle of November, what I took home. It was slow getting the garlic in, but I put it in about the third week of November. Here's a time lapse of just a little bit of that. And I mulched them heavily with leaves that the homeowner had placed in the garden for me. So they'll be ready for next year. And here's a crop we haven't seen before. We got a few Brussels sprouts. Not very big, but not too shabby. And got to have a monthly proof that I did not kill the apple tree. The grapevines have died back, and you can see there's lots of growth on this tree. And can't be November without a little bit of football. So we had a couple of football games at the University of Utah and had a good time. Very successful season. Coach Whittingham had the most wins in program history, and we won the Pac-12 South again, so that's awesome. And we had senior night, or senior day, and a lot of juniors are declaring for the draft, so we had a pretty good group of talent that's going to be leaving the university this year and go to the NFL. Now for the month of December, still got beautiful sunsets, maybe even more beautiful than earlier in the year, with some storms rolling through with some interesting cloud formations and colors. And Old Glory flying in with a beautiful sunset in the background. My mother treated me to a Jazz game early in December, and they played very well against the Boston Celtics and won. And here's a cameo of my mother. Transitioning over to the project garden, I've got to have my monthly proof the tree is still doing well. It will be nicely pruned next year, but it is definitely doing well. I made this one and only trip to the project garden about the second week of December. No snow on the ground yet, and just a little bit of cleanup to do. I've got the corn that I've got to pull out and just throw them in the chicken yard so the chickens can scratch through it. As we scan around, I've got still a couple brassica plants in the ground that I'll get rid of today, and the Swiss chard. And I've got the carrots, so I'll pick some and I'll leave this little patch here for the homeowner. And here I am, ripping out the corn, very simply, quickly. Ripping out the brassicas. Mr. Lincoln's helping me today. And I'm pulling up the leeks, getting rid of all the leeks, so they're going home with me today. And there's a pretty good root structure. I fumble one here. Oh, there it goes. But I recovered my own fumble, and here's the leeks. Not huge, but nice. And again, I dug up the carrots, and they're a lot smaller, but I'm starting to get into some of the white ones again. So I put a mixed color carrots, and I got a couple chubbies today. Nice ones. And here's what I took home on my last cleanup of the project garden. What I eat, what I won't eat, will go to the chickens. And there's Mr. Lincoln looking around going, what the heck happened? This used to be a garden. Well, as we look here, see, and take a little scan back over the garden, it's like I was never there. Minus a few carrots and garlic planted that hasn't come up yet. Another final look at the project garden. It's interesting to see from the beginning to the end that we'll have a blank canvas for next year. Home the final load of waste produce and tops from the project garden and gave them to the chickens so they can go through this and have a good time. I did have a problem in my pantry. As you see here, there's things sprouting that shouldn't be sprouting in December. So I had to take a few of them, the smaller ones particularly. They're sprouting and they're getting soft. And I just used a cheese grater and grated them up. And this is kind of the breakfast of the month and going forward because there's lots of soft ones. So they kind of turn into more of a tater tot. There's a lot of moisture in these potatoes, so they're not ideal for like hash browns, but they tasted just like tater tots. and they go well with fried eggs. Not much to look at though. I got over to the project garden and got it cleaned up because the next day, guess what happened? We got slammed with snow. So, winter is here. Gardening season is officially closed. And I did a lot of this. A lot of this. Checked on the chickens and took a little stroll, as you can kind of see how much snow we got. And I'm pretty confident that this is not the chickens' favorite time of year. And so as I peek over the fence, what do I see? Or I should say, what don't I see? I don't see a sign of a chicken to be found. Interesting. I wonder where they're at. Well, let's take a look inside the coop and see. And there's one that just found a new place to lay eggs. The barred rock is, it's not the nest box, but it's found a nice little quiet spot. Let's see where the other 7 chicken are. Let's check out the other side. And no surprise, there's, well, they've some moving around, but here's 4 of the others. Some Barnavelders and Americana and no eggs. So I guess they may be laying over where the barred rock is. And Mr. Lincoln never comes in here, but chickens are hiding, and so he thought, hey, I'll come on in here and check it out. He's pretty brave from the outside of the fence, but he doesn't want to tangle with these chickens. And when they're out in the yard free ranging, they just tolerate each other. He doesn't do anything with them, doesn't chase them, doesn't do anything. But I opened the door here so they could say hi. And as you see, they're not real worried about Mr. Lincoln. And Mr. Lincoln's kind of sitting there going, I've never been in here before. This is interesting. Here's my espalier apple. It's covered in snow, and the tomato cages look kind of free-formed with all the snow on them. And the garlic is all covered. And the way we ended the year and started 2022, this happened again. So rinse and repeat on the old shoveling. Exciting times at the end of the year. But last day of the year, New Year's Eve, we toasted the Utah playing Ohio State in the Rose Bowl tomorrow. This glass was also raised to honor my father, who passed away on January 1st, 14 years ago. Seems like yesterday. He's been gone a long time, but he's always in my thoughts. Well, friends, it's been a long year in review, 8 parts. It took me all month of January to pretty much take care of 2021. So I posed the question, did I live my best rural life in the city? As I went back and reviewed all the footage to make these 8-part series of my end of the year, I really realized how much I got accomplished and how much I did live a great rural life in the city. I also, by living in the city, was able to do other things. We were able to take in what the city has to offer too for entertainment, which sometimes if you're out in the country, you don't have those opportunities. So did I live my best rural life? I don't say my best because I think I can do better, but it was a great year. It was a great gardening year. It had its ups and it had its downs, but overall, pretty happy. I hope you see in through the content on my channel that there is a possibility to grow a ton of stuff and to really produce a lot of food. Can you be self-sufficient in the city? Not 100%. I'm not anywhere near that according to my grocery bills, but there's too many conveniences. It's too easy just to take off and go to this restaurant or go to the grocery store if you're out of something, rather than really look at what you have in your home and prepare good meals. That's always a challenge when you're in the city, but it is what it is. But again, I named my channel Growing Contentments because I don't want to be content as in not moving forward, but I want to be content that I long for a rural life, but my reality is in the city right now, and it may always be in the city. So I want to be content in the choices I make and in the activities that I do. And I want to continue to be as self-sufficient as I can be within reason. Again, the city has a lot to offer, and I don't want to run away from all those opportunities. But it's fun to be able to at least accomplish some of your goals. 2022 is an interesting year. Again, I'm narrating this toward the end of January, and I've got some exciting things coming up. There's going to be some changes and some new projects, and I'll get into that in future videos. But I appreciate all your support. I started this YouTube channel in March, and it's been a great 9 months, and I'm almost to 100 subscribers. Doesn't sound like much to most YouTubers, but to me, it's I'm pretty happy that many people are interested in what I'm all about. So please, I hope you like my channel, and I appreciate all your support. And I'm looking forward to a very busy 2022. And let's get after it. Thank you.